I like it too, baby.
Difference to be made is to try to make the Dark Zone. They have their own narrative arc now in a different way than the Dark Zone had in the first game. So how do you build kind of the Dark Zone into the more the narrative?
So again, you know, we're gonna break the fourth wall a little bit and talk to you about game development as well, because when you go into a project like this, there's a whole bunch of different sources and inspirations and things that you want to achieve, and fundamentally, I think it's no secret that we're both passionate about design and gameplay and structure, but you know, narrative and the context and the world is so important. It is that decision that you're going to take to jump into these locations or not. So the Dark Zone conceptually is a place, a forbidden place. It's pushing open those gates and going into this location that is unknown, that feels dangerous, that feels like you're stepping into a forbidden zone. And we wanted to keep that. But we also wanted to lean into what Matthias was saying, which was these unique architectural and city-wise structural differences that we have.
I gotta mute them for a second. Enforcer, I definitely do agree with you, and they need to talk about that. But one thing, has anybody seen the grenade launcher in any of these YouTube videos of the people that went to go play it, to go play the game early? Has anybody seen the grenade launcher? Please let me know. I still haven't seen it.
Area in Dark Zone South, next to the wharf, the coastline of the river. What sort of stories could we tell that match the architecture that we're featuring? Lots of interiors, these big government buildings. You know, if you've ever walked around DC, this is a city that is built to exude the power of government, to tell you, okay, this is a place of power. And there's nowhere that states that clearer than Dark Zone South.
Right.
And then in the West, this is Georgetown. Georgetown, if you've ever seen pictures, is possibly, apart from the nature biomes that we have, the nature environments that we have, it's possibly the most different location in any Division game.
And
go ahead, please. Yeah,
No,
cut me off. Do you know who I am? Jeez.
Oh, I'm not supposed to bump the table.
No, but
Typical.
You're crossing all the lines, man.
Community.
So
people.
as I was saying, it's if I'm talking too much, just tell me.
No. I just wanted to point out to people that we will be actually showing gameplay from Georgetown later on, so you'll actually get to see what Julian is talking about.
Perfect.
That's what I was.
And that's pretty much the first time we show that, apart from the mixer stream.
Exactly.
But Georgetown, much lower buildings. You know, it's almost European feel. Very different buildings, so every building feels very different. Tight corners, canals. It has a very European feel to it. So imagine a dark zone covered in this mysterious yellow powder, DC-62, and exploring that. And narrative is super important. And we know that we have a type of player like me who is a little bit intimidated by the dark zone.
I'm just a tiny bit intimidated by this.
Tiny bit intimidated. But there are stories, there's gameplay, there's landmarks, there's things to discover lore-wise, collectible-wise, and we have introduction missions where we're going to send you into each of the dark zones sequentially. You know, you hit a level cap, you get an introduction mission. They're not mandatory. You don't have to do it if you don't want to do it.
I know they showed it in the trailer, but I want to see actual gameplay of it.
Introduction missions introduce you to what created those dark zones, what makes them unique, what makes them stand out. I could tell you the stories, but I want to keep that for players to discover as well.
Yeah, but and they're also a great introduction to kind of the key ingredients, extraction, you know, acquiring gear that you need to get out of the dark zone through extraction. So it's a nice soft, you know, ramp up to going in to a dark zone that is then populated by other players. I'm trying to say.
Yeah. That's the thing.
So,
sorry.
No.
Please,
Julian, after
please,
you. After you.
No, please.
After you. I was just going to say, we from the gameplay that we're showing right now, we're not doing the introductory missions. We just jumped straight into Dark Zone South.
Okay.
And now, Julian, go on.
No, I was going to say, I got so carried away because really what I love, I don't particularly love being on camera and doing streams and stuff like that. But what I do
But
love,
you make it look so good.
thank you. Note that down for his performance review. No, but what I do love is talking passionately about the game. And here I forgot completely to say that it was an atypical PvE, PvP space, which, you know, we're assuming people know, but not everybody knows that. So that's where the intimidation comes too. It's not only that there are enemies that are super tough in the dark zone, it's also other players. And for me, the most intimidating part has always been other.
Y'all keep making me muted, and that's not what I want to do. You said you haven't heard anything about them fixing lag issues. That's why they say they don't want to split the map in between, but having 3 dark zones, smaller dark zones with only 12 people is gonna fix the lag issues. Instead of having 24 people in one server, you only have 12 people in that server. So that will fix lag issues in the dark zone.
That intensity into the dark zone, which is, you know, a fair space of the map when you think about it. So dedicating all of that space only to, you know, the most hardcore of the hardcore wasn't exactly what we wanted to do. But we have something for them too.
We have something for them as well. Let's take a look at the gameplay here, because for the loop that you were talking about, so there's been changes made to the rogue mechanics. We just maybe say that the rogue kind of concept has expanded a little bit in the Division 2. So I'm not sure where you are now, but if you could go rogue at some point, and we're going to talk a little bit about that.
It looks that we're looking at this quite tiny screen.
Oh, they
so
are
that's why
on. They are actually on the rogue loop already. They have gone rogue. They've started to do the rogue activities. We're seeing a terminal here. So tell us a little about the new rogue. What are they actually doing?
Well, right here, what you saw there, that they were interacting with a shade terminal in the dark zone, but it needs a little bit of setup. So first of all, for people who don't know at all, rogue was, you know, getting a skull above your head. This is in the original, when we released the Division 1, saying this player has killed another player, and it's now, fair game to take this player out without consequence. But that player stands to lose a lot potentially, right? So, of course, that is still in the Division 2, where you can choose to go rogue, take another player, and then keep escalating that all the way up to triggering a manhunt. And we wanted to extend that experience towards something a little less intimidating maybe than engaging with another player in full-on PvP, where things like opportunism, greed,
Selfishness.
yeah, you could say even selfishness can also be, the entry point into the role.
Guys, pay attention. This is how you get the shock ammo and a fire ammo.
Fire supplied up for yourself instead of sharing it. Will flag your rogue and set you on into this little journey, which is what they're doing here, I think. Yes.
Yes, they've actually already gone through the whole thing. They've unlocked the Thieves Den, which we'll touch upon in a couple of minutes. But
right, so
as we said, anything can happen. So they've been playing and we've been talking. So
For sure.
But yeah, so in the middle of the rogue loop, they're doing these. They're grabbing the terminals, grabbing chests.
yes, so from here on, of course, they can continue to escalate this into actually killing other players and enter that experience. But it's also what this does is it enables players who maybe want to completely try to avoid engagement with other players to have a full loop. So once you enter this state, they're going to these terminals and they're basically triangulating the location of a number of hidden, we call Thieves Dens. It's almost like a rogue safe house that you will be able to then get to if you manage to survive. For some reward, there's going to be a vendor in there selling some unique stuff, and it also marks the end of that loop. So,
And this
I think they're actually in the Thieves Den.
and this Thieves
right now.
Den is very different from the Shade Safe House that's also located
Right.
in the dark zone. So
You can find these in sewers. You can find them in.
different entry points. It's always going to be a surprise because you have to triangulate their location. So we don't want everybody sort of aiming for the same location every time. So there's a randomization there. So we're using different locations within the map manhole covers, for example, entryways, doors, as potentially the entrance into the Thieves Den.
And also exiting, like little tricks to make sure that, okay, but you might think that like what stops other players from just waiting outside the door. On exit, you will emerge somewhere else.
Yeah. So one of the things we didn't talk about, and I know that people are curious about, the VoIP rules. So we're getting a lot of questions on those. But what I would love is for you to ask the Red Storm team about that, so it clears it up for everybody.
Yeah, there's
been
a whole bunch of questions exactly what we're doing with VoIP. So
yep, and
we're going to bug Red Storm about it.
And it's complex. But the idea there is that we want to reduce the toxicity. Again, it's this single-minded nature of trying to make the dark zone a fairer, more fun place to be in, despite the added intensity of being in a location where anything can happen. It's a PvP-enabled space. But we're also going to normalize the regular dark zones. And again, normalization, don't be scared of it. Red Storm's going to jump in and explain exactly what they have in mind. Your build still matters. Your build choices still matter. What you're using, your equipment, your gear still matters. It just levels the playing field for everybody. So it makes it more skill focused than anything else. Yep. Still not a good idea for me to engage in PvP, but it creates that level playing field.
But actually, that brings up a good question compared to, or also related to kind of what they're doing right now. We're talking about being scared of going into the dark zone. I mean, our viewers have been making fun of me for a long time for mainly doing PvE because I'm scared. What does this bring for a PvE player? Because I felt that the first time I played this build, and I was running around doing these rogue actions, and I knew there were other employees out there hunting for it. I felt as a PvE player that this is something that I want to do. This is something that I want to experience. I can see myself going into the dark zone much more now than I could in the first game because I'm scared. And
well, do you want to jump in on that?
Sure. It's I mean, like any well-crafted experience, there's this tapestry of features and rule set and design decision that create that result, right? So I think there are many things contributing to why it's a more PvE only friendly experience. One of them being what I just described with that rogue loop, where you can get the thrill of other players being present, almost seeing them like the ultimate enemies of the dark zone, but you don't have to engage with them to get that enjoyment. And other things like uncontaminated loot, which I think is very important ingredient. Yeah. Where really the I would say the most distilled moment of tension and excitement in the dark zone is when you found something that you really want, and you have to extract it. Shooting that flare, you're visible to everyone. People know there's an extraction going on. I have to be in this place for this amount of time to successfully get my stuff. We don't want to screw with that. So that's of course still in the game. I'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're heading to an extraction or what's actually going on. They're not.
They're not.
So far, live gameplay.
I'm sure we'll see it in a bit. But what we've done is that we've added loot into the dark zone that goes direct to inventory. And this is also to make it a slightly more predictably rewarding experience for the time that you invest. But it also means that you don't necessarily have to expose yourself through an extraction, which is very exposing, right, to other players.
Yeah.
But the contaminated loot, however,
I was about to say the flip side of having access to non-contaminated loot is that the contaminated loot that you get, we're going to strive to make that even more relevant to you.
Right.
So behind the scenes, what we do is that yellow bag, once you get one, you don't know what's in there. You have to extract it to know what it's going to be. And we can predictably roll behind the scenes something that's going to be more useful for you. So that's a huge deal. So that means that when you see a yellow bag, when you see some piece of contaminated loot, that's going to be worth extracting. So that creates that, real desire to, okay, this is going to be predictably better than anything else.
Right. But I can still feel, because that's a fear now going in. I only have my contaminated loot, and now I always get rewarded anyway, in a sense.
Yeah.
As long as I
They're
pulled something
actually
off.
playing on PC and the
Yeah,
angle is
your
still
time is
bad.
always going to be rewarded.
Yep.
You're always going to get a non-contaminated loot
Right.
for playing in the DZ.
All right, so I'm being told we're actually going to jump over to Dark Zone West any minute, but first we're going to just take a short break. We're going to run the Dark Zone trailer for you while we set up Dark Zone West. and
So we're not taking a break. We're showing a trailer.
we're showing a
and
trailer.
When we
We're
come back.
We're taking a break.
All right.
Julian gets to take a break,
All right. Thank you.
and we'll be back very, very soon.